All right, I'm going to call us to order. Good evening. I'm Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3 and President of the Board. This is the regular meeting of Jefferson County Public Utility District Number 1 Board of Commissioners. It's Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, 5 o'clock. Governor's revised proclamation 2028 in response to COVID-19 pandemic, Jefferson County PUD no longer provides in-person rooms for meetings of the BOC. All meetings are accessible remotely until otherwise ordered by the Office of the Governor. Participants will be muted upon entry at the proper time. If you're going to comment, you need *6 to get back to unmute and get back in. This time we'll go over elections for commissioners to determine if we have a quorum.
Kenneth Collins, District 2.
Jeff Randall, District 1.
Next item on the agenda is the agenda itself. Any additions or corrections? I know that we have item 7.1, governance conflict of interest. I know that we affirmed that at the beginning of the year, commissioners. Do you want to address that again today? Is there a reason to do that, or we want to pull that? Or?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
When it was brought to our attention that we had done it in January, we should pull it now. It should not be on the agenda. So we would like to pull 7.1.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make that. Okay, and I'll second that.
To pull 7.1 and accept the agenda as
Correct.
Hey, all those, any other discussion? All those in favor accepting the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. With that, we will move on to item number 3, public comment. Public comment period is for items not specifically listed on the current agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. The chair may place time on public comments to allow the meeting to be conducted in an efficient and orderly manner. We'll do 3 minutes per person, one time. Comment will also be taken during old and new business. You can state your name on the record. It's not required, but it would help to have that on the audio. With that, I will open public comment. You see anybody?
I have an email from Roger Risley who says he can't mute or unmute and is asking me to read a statement from him.
That would be acceptable whenever you want, Will.
Okay, I will read it now from Roger Risley. For the last few months, I have been regularly requesting aggregated information on utility bill collections, specifically how many comments are in arrears, in what amounts, and how that is trending. Because we use an accrual accounting method, those numbers don't show up in the monthly financial reports. Gene Hall reported on this earlier in the year. The information is important for tracking the economic effects of the current pandemic on our utility. The board cannot make informed decisions, neither can the public make informed comment without this information. Going into a rate case, our consultant has appropriately addressed the need for public engagement, education, and transparency as a requirement for greater public scrutiny. It has been my experience that transparency has not been one of our strengths as a utility. In 2016, 2017, and 2018, I asked for aggregated data on revenues from I-502 businesses with no response. Other PUDs report this information, Mason 3, for example. In the last 2 years, our PUD has stopped giving a monthly financial report narrative and has buried the report in the consent agenda. In April 2019, the PUD stopped reporting 12-month rolling tier averages. In July 2019, I filed a public records request for the information and was told the PUD no longer calculates this particular item and is not obligated to create a document that it doesn't have. A rolling tier average is an important management tool. It has to be reported to comply with our RUS loan covenant. It's a proxy for our ROE. Our rate consultant has recommended we set a target ratio, which we actually do in our annual budgets. Hard to imagine it would no longer be calculated or that no one would miss it. The reporting was resumed at the request of the board. Aside from the issue of giving the public the brush off, there are larger questions here of what information gets created, and what does the public have a right to know? In the interests of transparency, public education, and greater public scrutiny, exactly how do we get information on our current accounts receivables concerning utility bill collections? Two more questions. First, who in the organization is responsible for what information the public has access to? And who in the organization is responsible for protecting the public's right to know? Thanks, Roger Risley, Customer Generator, District 2. And I will forward
Roger, thank
this
you,
on.
Bill. Is there any further public comment?
None that
Somebody,
I see.
I heard somebody's voice in the background. Nobody call for public comment?
Actually, this is Jeff. I'm struggling with my mute button. I just wanted a clarification of one of the things that Roger listed in that letter, Will. He said something about I-502 businesses. Do you understand what that is in reference to?
I do not.
Okay, well, we may have to ask Roger to clarify.
So maybe, Kevin, is this something you can touch on in your report or something you want to wait on?
I can wait on. We don't do I-95. We're not the size of utility that has to report that, but we will have an answer to Roger's questions next meeting.
All right, thank you. So one last call for public comment before we close it. Any further comment? Hearing none, and since we have the ability for people to chime in as we go through old and new business, I'm going to close public comment at this time. We'll move on to item number 4, the consent agenda. Items listed below have been distributed to the commissioners in advance for study and will be enacted by one motion. If separate discussion is required on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at a specific time at the request of any of the commissioners. So is there any corrections or anything you need to do with consent agenda, commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Second that.
So it's been moved and seconded to accept the consent as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Consent agenda is accepted. Item number 5, manager and staff reports.
Okay, I'm unmuted. What I'd like to do is start with the calendar part of our agenda. We have approximately 23 meetings that need to occur by the end of the year. That said, most of them would happen in a workshop. So does anyone else hear that, or is that
Is
me?
that someone we can mute, Will? Is that a phone? Someone on the phone?
Okay. I will go. I'll keep going. Will gave me the thumbs up. So what I'll do is I can read off the list of meetings. I think some we can do in regular board meetings, but most will have to happen throughout the rest of the year on off BOC days if possible. So what we're really asking for the commissioners to do is pull out a calendar, and we would start looking at dates that are available for special meetings. As everyone knows, on July 28th, we have Moss Adams already scheduled for a update and hopefully get us very close on the risk management policy. We are meeting with Moss Adams on that and on other issues tomorrow. We're going to try to get a timeline for Moss Adams, and if they can do their meeting within an hour, we may plug on an additional item on the meeting on the 28th. For example, one of them that is pretty short that Samantha has ready to go is the sewer systems, a little primer on where they are, what we own and what we don't own. That would help us for the rate study we're going to do in the near future. So just real quick thumbs up. Is everyone agreeable to the 28th and maybe trying to sneak a second meeting in there?
So this is Jeff. I'm going to be traveling that day, and I can make it work. Are you expecting it to be like 2-hour meetings?
What we're expecting it to be, Jeff, would be one meeting with Moss Adams talking approximately in less than an hour, depending on questions from the commissioners. And then Sam thinks her presentation would take approximately 20 minutes.
Oh, okay, so we're really talking about the same block of time, roughly.
It would be the exact same same block of time, yes.
No problem. That sounds great for me, anyway.
Okay. Then what we'd like to do is go to August. The regularly scheduled board meeting is on August 4th. We would like to schedule a meeting between 10 and 12 on August 11th and August 25th.
See if I can make that work.
Both times will work for me.
Okay. Tentatively, what we would do in August would be to give the board the preliminary budget. That would be on the 11th, and that would be almost a full 2-hour meeting by itself. So that would be independent. And then on the 25th, we would augment with 2 other meetings. Again, trying to stay within the 10 to 12 time period.
So Kevin, you said the first one was going to be budget oriented on the 11th?
Yes, we previously talked in meetings that we would have a preliminary budget ready to go to the board, one of our first meetings in August. And that would be similar to last year. We're going to give you what we have ready, and then the board's going to look at it and say, you know, trim or add, or that's your time to give us feedback. Then we would take your feedback, and in the September meeting, we would have incorporated your feedback and would have more of a discussion in the September timeframe.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now in September, we have Tuesday the 1st is our first meeting, and then we have a meeting on the 15th. We would like to schedule a meeting the 8th, the 22nd, and if you guys could stand it, possibly the 29th.
So on the 8th, that's one of the quarterly meetings of the Workforce Development Council that normally runs from about 10 till 1.
So we could move from the 8th to the 9th if that works better for everyone. These meetings are such, I think if we can make it so all 3 commissioners could be there, that would be better.
Right. Yeah, the 9th is no problem. What were the other 2 dates you had, Kevin?
22nd and 29th.
Okay.
Okay, I will not be available anytime on the 22nd. I expect to be out of town.
Would you be available the 21st?
No, not the 21st either.
So is it safe to say, Ken, the week of the 21st, you're gone?
Well, it's probably safe to say it, but it's not accurate.
Okay.
So I'm back on the, I'll be back in the afternoon on the 22nd, so that the 23rd or the 24th will work for me.
23rd works for me.
23rd is good. I have the manager that day, but we can move it earlier in the week, Kevin.
Okay,
So that's a 10 to 12 also.
10 to 12. So right now I penciled in the 9th, the 23rd, and I would like to pencil in the 29th. That would give us 3 meetings that month, which is hard, but with all we have to do, I think we need the option.
Yeah, that sounds okay to me.
Okay, once again, please, the 9th,
Yes? The 23rd
23rd, okay? And the
and the
29th,
29th.
got it. Thank you.
Okay, we're to October. In October, we're looking at Tuesday the 13th and Tuesday the 27th.
Those dates are both good for me.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
I'm tracking a little slowly this evening. October dates again are, please.
The 13th and the 27th.
13th and the 27th, they're both good.
Okay. Again, 10 to 12. In November, we would like to schedule the 10th and the 24th.
Both are good.
Realizing the 24th may be a challenge.
So I think the 10th is another one of those quarterly Workforce Development Council meetings.
Can we go to the 11th, Jeff?
That just shows up as Veterans Day, so I don't know if that's a
Yes,
day
it
off.
does.
Oh, it is a holiday. Yeah. The 12th?
Monday the 9th would work, or the 12th would work for me.
12th is
Dan?
good.
The 9th and the 12th both work for me.
Okay.
The 12th is the best day for me.
Okay. That
Okay,
works.
the 12th. How about the 24th?
Man, you're just slinging them at us here. I feel like a
Yes.
fry cook in the kitchen.
24th is good for me at the moment.
24th or Thanksgiving week. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that day works for me too.
Okay, so we're going to schedule those meetings, and the topics may be very related. We may have 2 water meetings together, or we may have a water and broadband meeting together. It's how we can get the speakers in and rotate people around. We do have one question, and this is the hardest part, at least right now, about scheduling out into the future. We believe these meetings will be WebEx meetings, even into November. From the board's perspective, do you care if we advertise them today as a WebEx meeting? It would still, I think, be available to the public to WebEx in, but if the governor changes his rules, we would do a WebEx with a provision of having a location for somebody to come in if they so chose to do so.
So just a question, if we advertise it that way, then we get down the road and we decide the restrictions are less restrictive at that point and we can have live meetings and we decide the WebEx meetings aren't getting us the public participation we want, can we redo the notice and do more of a live meeting if we decide that's appropriate?
We can do that, yes.
Yes,
All right. So
no
keep
problem with that at all.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, keeping our options open is the best.
Yeah, I'm fine with that also.
So what I'm hearing is we'll go ahead and we'll schedule these meetings as soon as possible with the agenda items as a WebEx. And then if things change, we will repost, but they will be posted as a WebEx to begin with.
Sounds good.
Again, on some of the meetings, there may be 1, 2, or 3 topics. And the meetings will be a little bit different. They won't have a theme to them, but we will, try to keep as much continuity as we can. So, gosh, that went quicker than I thought. I appreciate everybody's patience with that. I do have a couple other just real quick things. Again, we have Moss Adams on the 28th at 10 a.m. We were bringing people back a little bit quicker. We've postponed based on the new outbreaks and everything that's going on. We've slowed it down, and we still have people that want to come in, but we're going to really restrict how many people can be in a building. That's for everyone's safety. We're trying to be sympathetic to both the employees who want to come in and, guidelines we're getting from other people. We have, as everyone knows, put out an org chart. One of the very first hires that we'll do, that it was budgeted for this year, that we will start moving this forward, is the electrical superintendent. That person will be in direct charge of the line crew, and needed position. This gives someone dedicated to them to help with scheduling, work with contractors, stuff like that. So with that, if there's no other questions, we're done, or I'm done.
So, commissioners,
Not at this time.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but Kevin, I'm wondering, in response to Roger's comment, I know in reviewing the package of materials, there's a report on the number of customers who are in arrears and the amount, or at least the range of what is owed, and the approximate number of days that the number of customers are in arrears. So I'm a bit surprised as to his comment that material, that information isn't regularly provided. And I'm misunderstanding the comment.
Ken, I don't think we have been very good at pulling it and talking about it specifically. A lot of that is my response, because financials, we can't just pull one little piece of the financials and use it as a benchmark of where we are. I don't know. We showed you some historical data with people in the rears, and this year compared to 2018, we're about the same. So we're hoping in an educational way to look at things holistically on the budget and look at really the bottom couple numbers and say, okay, our cash reserves are where they need to be, our revenues are coming in, and our expenses are staying where they should be. So we can make a bigger deal of some of the rears and stuff. I don't think it's necessary, but we can do it.
I guess the context of his question was how much more of an issue is it in the time of COVID-19?
Not a lot. Again, we would like people to concentrate on the bottom line versus a very, very small subset of the numbers.
Sure.
Was that it, gentlemen?
Yes.
I had one quick question for Kevin. I don't know if you can share any additional discussions related to the intergovernmental committee process in terms of your meetings with the other executives from the port, the city, and the county. Has there been any significant conversations that you want to report from that?
We did have a meeting today. Tuesday is our normal group meeting. I gave them a pretty big update on broadband, and we did talk about all of the subgroups. Some are moving faster than others. Some, the group, not so much myself, but there is some concerns with the group on kind of like who's on each committee and who's not. I've gotten some feedback that way. I believe these groups should be who's ever on them. I don't care who's on them. I want to see some fresh faces, some different people on the groups. I don't want the 4 managers to pick the groups. I figure that defeats the whole purpose of trying to get public involvement. So we had a good meeting today. Coming up we have a meeting on Thursday starting at 5 with the group and the electeds. We are going to put some deadlines on, such as October for a first review of information coming back. We do hope to see in October maybe 2 things that could be worked on. I will tell you this, I talk a lot about funding in those meetings, that we as governmental agencies have to fund some of these projects. I do get pushback on that. Their drive is that the groups will be citizen involvement to push the projects forward. I made this statement at the JBAT meeting. I don't believe in big government, but these problems aren't going to be solved by the public. They need some funding to make them move forward. So I do think between the 4 of us, that's where I kind of differ a little bit. I do believe money is one of the issues we're going to run into through this whole COVID-19 group. So.
Okay, thank you for that little snapshot, Kevin. Appreciate it.
So I did have one question also about, while we're here, Kevin, about the Roger packing that comment. The one, unless I heard it wrong, the one question that I would have is there was a reference to records requests. Maybe Annette wants to chime in. I didn't quite, not sure if I heard it right, but did Roger was not able to get something on a records request, or did I hear something to that effect?
Okay, go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When somebody asks for a record and it's not something we have, we cannot create a record for them to satisfy their answer. That is against the law. And so if we don't already have that record on file to give, we cannot create something to satisfy the request. So something he was asking for.
And at that point, it's not a records request anymore. It's a request for staff to produce something.
Correct.
To generate.
And we're not required. Right. We're not required to do that. And I don't know if Joel to chime in now too, but we're not allowed to create something we don't already have. And what he was asking for was something we no longer do.
Right. It's a public records request. It's not a public records at that point.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Annette and Commissioner Randall are both right on that, and I agree.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. So are there any other questions? Here's report at this time. Nothing, Will? All right, so with that, we will move on to item number 6, old business, 6.1, rate setting fundamentals presentation review. From Kevin Street, FCS rate study review.
So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the presentation and then get feedback from the 3 commissioners so that we can help guide FCS as much as possible prior to the next meeting. The next meeting, they're going to have a lot of information, and the better prepared they are, the better it is for everyone. So
Quick question, Kevin. Did you get any feedback or follow-up from FCS since the meeting?
yes, we've exchanged additional information. Both Samantha and Mike and myself are exchanging the last little bit of information that they need to go to the next step and start working on rates. I did get a couple comments from the public on the presentation. And I'm going to tell everyone here at this meeting the same thing I've told a couple other people. I'm not even going to talk about staff. I'm just going to talk about myself. I don't know if I agree with everything FCS provided to the commissioners. But it's not staff's point at this time to really weigh in and say, we like this or we don't like this. The presentation from FCS was for the commissioners to get a flavor of what they do, what they recommend, how they want to proceed. And so as staff, myself personally, some of the things they talked about, we would not recommend. But this is a board decision, and the board needs to see all options. So some of the comments that we got back were, gosh, that isn't right. You shouldn't do this way or that way. That presentation was just to get people thinking, moving forward, to get the back and forth of questions, that kind of stuff. And for that reason, I think the presentation was very good. It did cause people to think and come up with questions. Now we would like to give the board, you've had a week, we've looked at things. Do you have any questions on the presentations? Are there things you liked or didn't like? Would you like us to take some comment back to FCS, or do you just want to wait till the next meeting? The more information we give them, though, the better the end product is going to be, and the quicker they'll have an end product for us. That's my spiel.
So, Kevin, I had a couple questions. Was it your impression from the conversations that took place, is FC kind of prioritize? One of the things to look at is how we might be subsidizing one class with another class and that sort of thing. Did they kind of get that impression? Because I think that's one of the things that we're trying to accomplish here. The commissioners could weigh in. Are they really going to focus on that particular type of an approach?
Yes, you will get a detailed analysis of where everybody sets in the rate policy and the revenues you're talking about, because there may be an inequity over here, but it's dollars in the overall budget, whereas inequity over here may be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they will do an equity component to the rates, and that will be prior to them making recommendations. They'll come back and say, if these people should pay more, these people should pay less. But there is a political portion to rate setting, low income, other things like that. So that's where the board starts to get involved and say, no, those people should pay that much, and these people should pay less. Per RCW, you can have a low income rate. And so that's part of the discussion moving forward.
Okay, Commissioner, I have other questions, but commissioners, if you have questions, go ahead.
And on that same topic, Kevin, I brought up at the meeting when they talk about this group is paying more than their fair share, or this group is paying less than their fair share, or whatever, it's really important to me that they talk about how those calculations are done, and whether it's talking about they're not utilizing the utilities infrastructure very efficiently, therefore they should be paying more. I want to have them explain that in plain speak. So when they get to their conclusion of these guys are or aren't paying their fair share, we know what that is based upon. And then if we agree or disagree with those conclusions, we're doing it from more of an informed basis. So just make sure they do that and not just throw the answers at us. Show us the ingredients in the recipe.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would like to know, I think the methodology should be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And I regarded the presentation as being at a very high level, an overview without a lot of specifics that I could really dig my teeth into. So I'm waiting to see what they provide us with at the next meeting. And, having been accustomed to a couple of presentations by EES, I'm open to a different approach, and I don't have any specific questions, but they will come, I think, after our next presentation.
Dan, did you have any more?
Yeah, I had staff. Hopefully I can work in a way that makes sense. So as staff, are you kind of looking at internally, looking at refinancing some of the debt, particularly on the water side or things, and from a refinancing standpoint, I know there's some RUS talk about refinancing. Are staff working with FCS along those lines to make how they would incorporate that into this rate structure or this cost of service? Is that something you guys are having talks with them about? I realize that the commissioners have to weigh in on what we think is appropriate for those types of things. I'm just trying to get the timing here as to where you guys as staff are with that particular line of questioning.
So I'll go first, and then Mike, if he chimes in after I am, that's great. We've been working with Moss Adams on refinancing all of our LUDs and possibly some of our RUS loans for about 2.5 months, 3 months now. We are working with Moss Adams on that portion of the issue and less with FCS. But part of the information, the last little bit of information we have to give FCS is, are you going to be able to do that? Because what you're paying out in interest does go against, our profitability. So we are working on it. Full disclosure, Joel's in the meeting on Wednesday with Olga Moss Adams, and part of it will be reserves and stuff like that on these meetings. So the answer is yes, we're working on it. No with FCS. We're going with Moss Adams because that's their primary function, and that's who, as staff, we work through all of our financial obligations through Moss Adams.
So you're comfortable with the timing standpoint of those conversations with commissioners, staff, Moss Adams, and FCS? We're in the right spot?
No. We just scheduled so many meetings, Dan, literally because today we couldn't have the meeting, but we're hoping within a month, 6 weeks we can. And so we've scheduled the meeting. Now we're going to fill in as quickly as we can all the pieces. So will it all come together? Excuse my language, damn right it will. But it will be a challenge.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we, it was out there that we're working on that.
And Commissioner Tupic, if you wouldn't mind, I could comment on the RUS refinance. There's some legislation I think you've all seen in Congress to allow every RUS borrower to refinance their debt to a lower rate, which I think recently is around 1.1% at no cost. So that would feed into overall debt structure, which feeds into your rates.
Right. So,
So if you have a chance to talk to your congressmen or senators, I'd encourage them to do that. It's a huge benefit.
And for the commissioners, we have reached out to Wapuda, and within an hour we got the confirmation back that George was on it. He reached out to his counterparts. So the more pressure we can put on these groups, the better it is.
Joel, do you have a bill number that we can reference?
I think we do, Kevin, don't we? I think it's I saw something, but I'll dig it up and send it around.
In one of the emails, Ken, you may have to go down through it a little bit, but the bill is in the first paragraph down towards the bottom, and some of the information we've sent out. But we'll make sure you get it. Joel can grab it real quick.
anything else, commissioners?
Yeah, I had one more comment on the rate issue. So we got a recent American Public Power Association newsletter, and it had some links in it that I followed up on, things that are happening around the US, things that utilities are working on. And one of them that was kind of interesting talked about rate design for electric vehicles. And I clicked on that to find out, well, what does that mean? And a couple examples popped up, one including from Tacoma Power and Light. And Kevin, this plays back to one of the conversations we had with the Energy Northwest folks when they were talking about rate design for fast chargers. But so Tacoma Power and Light, the note I have here says, a new DC fast charging rate structure temporarily increases the energy charge while reducing the demand charge compared to the general service rate. This rate structure will phase out over 13 years, returning to the general service rate for DC fast charging by 2031. So Tacoma Power and Light was one of the utilities in this little list of utilities doing things on electric vehicles, and that's what popped up for them. So if we could just ask FCS the question, if we're going to have some EV fast charging in our county, that we've already had the input that our rate structure may not actually encourage people to actually use those chargers if and when they are installed.
So, and Jeff, I'll reach back out to Energy Northwest. The issue becomes the 50 kW. A rapid charger with today's technology uses right there at that 50 kW. So that puts them in a bad spot. If you only are charging one car a day and you have to pay that demand charge, then the power becomes expensive. So approximately 6 months ago, when we applied for some of the grants with, to put it on the peninsula through Energy Northwest, that is something that should be looked at and really tweaked. The last discussions I've had with people is if you charge one car, you're not going to get over the 50 kW right now because of technology. But if you have two cars going at the same time, you'll definitely be over the 50 kW. So it will be part of the discussion. I will add that to my notes for them.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, if I can interrupt for just a second, this is Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I have the bill number for the RUS loan discussion.
Go ahead.
It's going to be HR 7483.
While you're here, Mike, do you want to add anything on the refinancing? You've really looked at a lot of things.
I've talked to, I mean, we're not looking so much, the LUD loans, they're pretty low right now. The one that we really are looking at doing anything with is our big RUS loan. Hoping that this new bill will go through, because right now we're at either 2 or 3%. I can't remember right off.
I think it's 2.7.
Yeah,
It's almost 3.
so 1.1 changing to 1.1 saves us quite a bit on interest expenses. We have reached out to Rodney Peach, who's our RUS representative, talked to him a few times about some different options and stuff. So we're going to be following this bill. And like Joel said, if you guys can help reach out either through Wapuda or on your own to our congressman, help push it through, we would appreciate it.
Could you confirm that one more time, Mike? HR
7483.
748.
And I have some information I looked at before, sent it to Joel and Kevin, that I can send out to the commissioners.
I'm just wondering if we couldn't just have an official letter drafted for us to sign at a meeting that basically outlines the issues and has the PUD letterhead and has all 3 of us sign it, and we send it to each one of our Congress people.
Well, I'm guessing Wapuda has already done it, but it wouldn't hurt to redundancy here. Is not a problem.
No, because I don't know, we're one of the biggest ones right now in PUD in Washington that has an RUS loan out there. So,
and we could probably even list, rough guesstimates as to how much money it would save our customers in terms of interest.
Yeah, we could kind of.
I mean, a letter like that I think would be beneficial because it would give Congress people very specific information on an example.
Yeah, I think we can do something like that.
So anyway, Kevin, that's kind of a request from me for maybe drafting up a letter like that for us. Thank you, sir.
And Kevin, you'd indicated that you'd already reached out to George Kahn and he was very receptive.
You're muted, Kevin.
He was awesome, Ken. Within 2 hours, we had an email back from him that he had reached out to some of his colleagues that were already pushing the bill and added Wapuda to the list of governing bodies that support it and stuff. So I can't say enough how quick he reacted to our request.
So, I wanted to add real quick, if you guys don't mind. We something I thought would be good for us to do is to have a chat with Derek Kilmer or some folks from his office. This could be a great opportunity to do that. Just set up a 15-20 minutes of FaceTime with Kilmer, ask him to support this, and just go over any other needs that we have. He was very quick about responding about our letter of support for our Navy grant.
So anything else on this topic of 6.1 from staff or commissioners? Any public comment on 6.1 rate setting fundamentals from the previous meeting with FDS?
None that I see.
Well, we'll give it a second here. Anybody? All right, well, we still got time in business to let if they need to make a comment. So with that, we will move on to new business. We've scratched item 7.1, so it'll be 7.2, PERMS coverage and alternative medicine.
I will start and then Annette will jump in. We've had a couple requests to have some alternative methods covered by our new insurance. Some of it was covered by our old insurance. So this is just your first look at a little different type of insurance coverage. It will be minimal cost, and for quite a few people in the PUD, it is a way that they would prefer to go with certain medical questions or issues. So, Annette, you want to jump in?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this question came about a couple of weeks ago when I myself thought I'd check into getting a naturopath or some alternative medicines because I'd rather go that way naturally. Well, come to find out, PERMS doesn't cover that. We haven't added that as part of our coverage. And I went to Kevin and asked if maybe we could have this added per your approval, of course. And I've also reached out to Dick Roderick at PERMS and to ask how much more. And the way our premium works is that because we're self-insured, our premium charge each month is different depending on what people use. So if a lot of people elect to use this, then it could go up considerably. It just depends on what people use. That's how PERMS works because we're self-insured. But I was hoping that we could get this through. I think it's an alternative for people to have, and a lot of people prefer seeing a naturopath as opposed to a regular doctor. And I think that it would be great if the PUD could offer that for their wellness. That's all I have.
Thanks, Annette. Yeah, I'm in favor of something like this. It'd be nice to get some numbers to put to it, just so for transparency and, budget purposes. I can't believe it would be a budget buster. But I'm in favor of something like this.
Okay.
Yeah, I would support it also. I at times go to acupuncture and other stuff, so I'm a supporter of what you're proposing. Sometimes that is the right approach.
And I would like to see some definitions here as to what would be covered and what wouldn't. I took the time to look up what a naturopath does, and as long as that individual is licensed by the state of Washington, they have appropriate medical training. They don't have the same scope of practice as a regular MD, but there are a lot of things they can do, and I'm certainly fine with our reimbursing for the services of a licensed naturopath. I would be surprised if we don't already cover acupuncture, but I don't know that for sure. There are certain things that probably we should not cover because the science isn't there to support it. And I'm thinking in particular of homeopathic medicine. And I know people find support for various practices on the internet, and you can find anything you want to find to confirm your own set of beliefs. But as far as what we should be covering, I just think it needs to be reasonably well defined.
Okay. Well, when I hear back from Dick, I'm hoping to this next week. Acupuncture is not covered. I did find that out. That's one thing we did not have covered. So I'll find out. And they said that we could sign up for different alternatives that we want, and they won't cover it unless it is by a licensed physician. So, PERMS ultimately won't cover something that's not kosher with the state anyway. So they're ultimately the ones who decide. But I can find out a list of what the coverages can be, and then we can decide on what those are things that we would cover. And again, the price is funny because it's only on consumption. So if you use it, then it'll be charged. But other than that, it won't be it won't make the premium go up unless a lot of people use it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's because we're self-insured, it's not a set price. So he can't tell me, oh, each person's going to go up $200. It doesn't work that way. So I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense to me, and I support what you're suggesting. So I look forward to hearing back from you after you've talked with Dick Roderick.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for considering it.
Thanks, Annette. So is there any other comment by staff or commissioners on this topic? Seeing and hearing none, public comment at all on this particular issue? Anything, Will? All right. So that brings us to the end of new business. Item 8, commissioner reports. Commissioner Randall, would you like to lead?
Sure, I can go. On July 8th, I had a phone call with Philip Morley about the intergovernmental coordinating group and how we're proceeding, and my assignment to work with the jobs and economy group. On the 13th, attended the special PUD meeting we had on rates. On the 15th, had a conversation with Colleen McAleer, who's a Clallam PUD commissioner and runs their EDC, about the same sort of thing, this CARES Act funding for the coronavirus jurisdictions, and learned a lot about what Clallam is doing with their money, and that they had actually, the EDC had done some surveys of their businesses that gotten good responses that apparently was shared with our EDC. So I was very curious to see how their businesses are reporting they're being impacted, thinking that would be similar to ours. Have not yet received that information, but I'll follow up with Brian Q on that. 16th and the 17th participated in the WAPUTA meetings, and at our energy committee, we had a presentation by Kurt Miller of Riverkeepers that was kind of an eye-opening one about this new issue that water temperature will be regulated under the Clean Water Act as a, I get the acronym right, a TMDL. I think it stands for total maximum daily load, like a pollutant. So they're looking at water temperature now as a regulated pollutant per a agreement with the federal EPA, and both the EPA and the Department of Ecology are now generating rules on that. So something that we'll get to pay attention to, but water temperatures in the river are higher than what apparently they want them to be. So let's see here. And then I guess on the Government Relations Committee, they also talked about some possible reintroduction of bills at the next session that were vetoed that would benefit the PUDs, like that, I think it was the it was the tax credit on the business tax or something like that, getting that back. And then finally, we heard there's going to be no special session this year. And then moving ahead, on the 19th, had a phone conversation again on this intergovernmental coordinating group with, this time, John Morrow, city manager of the city of Port Townsend. And in all these conversations, I've been talking to them about my role as the liaison to this jobs and the economy group. And what I've learned, what I thought was happening, was that there were groups out there meeting. And what I'm finding out in this topic, there really aren't, or that the meetings were not productive. So I've been reaching out to different people, trying to get a more well-rounded group. And I forwarded that information to Will at the end of last week. And I think Will has been reaching out now. So we're trying to get our group together and having our first meeting. Let's see, but I've made contact with folks from Local 2020, the person from the Department of Health who regulates businesses, Siobhan Canty with the Community Foundation. And so I think we're getting there, but and John Morrow did say that he thought this topic was one of the more difficult ones to get some agreement on, just based on historically how much disagreement there's been about what are good economic things to be pursuing in our county anyway. So that's my report. And then of course, we'll be attending all those meetings that we just listed off in the future. That's it.
Yeah, Jeff, I had one thing to add to your meeting. I found it pretty interesting that during that presentation on the water temperature, that the water coming in from Idaho and British Columbia is already too warm to meet Washington and Oregon specs and standards.
Yeah, I was kind of boggled by that one myself. It'll be interesting when we set up that agenda. One of the things I asked WAPUTA staff was, we're having somebody give a presentation, but why not have the guys who actually generated the rules give the presentation? And their comment was, well, this is really an introduction. And I thought the Riverkeeper folks did a good job of overviewing the issue without, getting kind of super partisan on it. but I think it'd be really nice to hear from the Department of Ecology. What exactly are you thinking? You know, if you've got a rule that can't be met by the water that's coming into us from out of state, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So I'm guessing we're going to hear a lot more about it. But yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm unmuted. So on the 8th, I attended the PERM's Moss Adams audit exit interview, and they got they had a flawless audit, which is nice to know. On the 13th, I attended the FCS introductory presentation, the 15th through the 17th. I participated in various WAPUTA committee meetings and the executive committee meeting. And in fact, I started the morning of the 17th with a conference call with JBAT. On the 20th, I was on the line for a webinar, which was hosted by FEMA, and it had about a dozen different presenters. Various agencies were represented, among them FEMA, the National Telecom and Information Administration, USDA, the Economic Development Administration, someone from the Telehealth, Health Resources and Services Administration. There was a presenter from HUD and from the Federal Communications Commission Lifeline program. So a lot of information compressed into a short period of time. I also talked with Kevin in the morning of that day. Tomorrow morning, I'll be participating in a meeting of the JBAT Steering Committee. A little later in the day, I'll be talking with our Water and Sewer Director, Samantha Harper. And on the 28th, I'll be part of our risk management discussion. On the 29th, there'll be a meeting of Energy Northwest that I'll be participating in. And that's my report.
Thank you. So I met with the general manager on July 8th. I took a special meeting rate study presentation by FCS Consulting on the 13th. The Waputa Commissioners Education Commissioners Education Committee meeting was on the 15th. Cybersecurity was the topic, and the keynote speaker was a representative. His name is Benke from Eastern Washington. He worked in this cyber front in the Army and also has a consulting business in the field. A couple of takeaways. Really good presentation by him, and Senator Sheldon even commented on what a good job he did and how he's going to be a good asset at the state level on this topic. Involvement in social media is one of the main ways hackers can gain interest into any business or personal life, which we probably kind of makes common sense, but I think it's good to remind people that, you know, that's they always get your weakest links, and that's one of the ways that they get into, you know, utilities and businesses is through your social media stuff. So always kind of be mindful about what we're clicking on and what we're doing when we go out there to express ourselves or see what other people are doing. And always keep up with updates and patches for your systems and devices that your providers offer. Those were the two big takeaways from that very, very good presentation. On the 16th, I attended all of the Waputa committee meetings, the water committee meeting, which I'm a representative to. We had our normal roundtable. And one of the things that came up during that meeting from one of the other utilities was questions about whether we can utilize as a PUD lien authority. And there was quite a bit of back and forth and some discussion on that. Long story short, it's not a good optic, you know, to be going after people, you know, tying up their property and and that sort of thing. And usually the cost of recapturing those things is it doesn't pencil out anyways. That was one of the main things. And then the other one was renters versus property owners. As you get into that again, how do you navigate, what's the renter's responsibilities, and how do you put a lien on, someone who may not be able to control it, as in the landlord. So long story short, again, was the lien authority is something that just most people in the utility said we should just steer clear of for trying to recapture arrears and that sort of thing. And obviously the WAPUDA workshop in September is going to be virtual, as will, I'm sure the other commissioners know, all the WAPUDA meetings for this year have gone to a virtual setting. There's not, at the moment, not any plans to do any live meetings clear through the end of the year. I suppose that could change, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that at the moment, the way the governor has been going with his proclamations. On the 17th, I attended the board of directors meeting online too. Elliot Mainzer from BPA gave an update pretty much on the same issues that are always having to do with BPA, which is, the CRSO, the Columbia River Systems Operating Environmental Impact Statement, that's still in the works. The rate case, they're starting on the next rate case study for BPA. And they talked about grid modernization for BPA as they start to enter into the energy imbalance market with the West Coast energy market. I'll meet with Kevin Street on the 22nd. I will listen in on JeffCom on the 23rd. And I'll participate in the risk management meeting on the 28th. And that is my report. So are there any questions or any further discussion on the commissioner reports? Nope, seeing, hearing, and nothing. Unless there's any further public comment on anything we've talked about, anyone that couldn't get in earlier. You seen anything, Will? Anybody trying to type anything in or get on? So that concludes our agenda. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will put us into adjournment. Anything? I see a thumbs up, so.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thanks again, staff.
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night, guys.
All right, with that, it is 6:07 and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Will.
Thank you.